Elements of the 25th Infantry Division prepare to launch Operation Longfellow on the 17th of April.
Welcome back to Fascinating History. Today we take an exciting journey through the unspeakable things the Vietcong did to U.S. soldiers. Could the dense jungles of Vietnam and the cunning tactics of the Vietcong have been the ultimate test of survival for U.S. soldiers? From the shadows of the natural fortress, the Vietcong launched a war not just of weapons but of minds, turning the terrain into a deadly maze of booby traps and hidden dangers. Every step could lead to injury or death, with Punji stakes and bouncing Betties lying in wait, and an extensive network of tunnels allowed the enemy to strike and vanish like a ghost. But it wasn't just the physical threats that haunted the soldiers. Psychological warfare aimed to break their spirit, spreading fear and distrust within the ranks. So, how did these guerrilla strategies redefine combat, and what was their lasting impact on those who lived through the conflict? Well, let's get started. The Guerilla Warfare. The guerrilla warfare tactics employed by the Vietcong during the Vietnam War represented a paradigm shift in how armed conflict was conducted, particularly against a technological superior adversary like the United States. At the heart of guerrilla warfare lies the principle of using small, mobile forces to engage the enemy in a series of quick hit-and-run attacks. This approach is fundamentally different from conventional warfare, which typically involves large armies engaging in direct combat to seize control of territories. The Vietcong's mastery of guerrilla tactics was emphasized by their strategic use of Vietnam's dense jungles. These environments provided natural cover and concealment, allowing guerrilla fighters to launch surprise attacks and then quickly disappear back into the forest. The jungle served not just as a battlefield but as a vast, natural fortress, replete with intricate tunnel systems that offered the Vietcong safe havens for planning, logistics, and medical care. The terrain was booby-trapped with mines and Punji stake pits, turning the landscape into a lethal obstacle course for U.S. soldiers, who were often unfamiliar with such terrain. The impact of these guerrilla tactics on conventional U.S. military strategies was profound and multifaceted. Traditional American military doctrine, which emphasized firepower, large-scale operations, and control of territory, found itself ill-suited to the Vietcong's asymmetrical warfare style. U.S. forces trained and equipped for conventional warfare faced significant challenges in adapting to the hit-and-run tactics and the psychological warfare employed by the Vietcong. The guerrillas' ability to blend in with the civilian population further complicated the U.S. military's efforts to identify and engage the enemy, leading to frustration and a sense of futility among American troops. Moreover, the Vietcong's guerrilla warfare tactics significantly strained U.S. resources and morale. The constant threat of ambushes and booby traps, combined with the difficulty of engaging an enemy that refused to stand and fight in large formations, led to a war of attrition. The U.S. military's response, including widespread bombing campaigns and search and destroy missions, often resulted in collateral damage and civilian casualties, which only served to alienate the local population and garner support for the Vietcong. Booby traps and landmines. Among the myriad of traps used, Punji stakes were notoriously infamous. These were sharpened bamboo sticks, often smeared with feces or poison to increase the risk of infection, concealed in pits covered with foliage or placed in pathways known to be used by U.S. soldiers. When a soldier stepped on the cover, they would fall onto the stakes, causing severe injuries or death. The simplicity and low cost of constructing these traps made them a ubiquitous danger in the jungles of Vietnam. Another common trap was the bouncing Betty, a type of mine that upon triggering would spring up to waist height before detonating, dispersing shrapnel over a lethal radius. Tripwires connected to grenades or other explosives were also widespread, designed to explode when disturbed, causing casualties to unsuspecting troops moving through dense vegetation. Statistics from the conflict underscore the devastating impact of these traps. It's estimated that booby traps and landmines caused approximately 11% of all U.S. fatalities and a significant proportion of injuries during the Vietnam War. The psychological effect of these hidden dangers was profound, instilling a pervasive sense of fear and paranoia among soldiers, knowing that every step could be their last. The underground tunnels. The extensive network of underground tunnels utilized by the Vietcong during the Vietnam War represents one of the most innovative and effective guerrilla warfare strategies. Spanning thousands of miles, these tunnels were not just mere passageways, but a complex infrastructure that housed command centers, hospitals, weapon caches, and living quarters. This underground labyrinth allowed the Vietcong to move undetected, launch surprise attacks, and then vanish, leaving U.S. forces grappling with an enemy that seemed to be everywhere yet nowhere. Constructed meticulously over several years, the tunnels were dug by hand, often just large enough for a person to crawl through. They were reinforced with wood and bamboo to prevent collapses and had multiple levels to protect against bombings and flooding. Entrances were camouflaged so well that they were nearly impossible to detect, and booby traps protected exits, making any attempt to pursue the Vietcong into these tunnels extremely hazardous. The strategic advantages provided by these tunnels were manifold. They facilitated surprise attacks on U.S. bases and convoys, allowing the Vietcong to strike swiftly and then disappear into the earth. The tunnels also served as a means to transport supplies and reinforce troops undetected across contested territories. Moreover, they provided a safe haven from aerial bombings and artillery strikes, enabling the Vietcong to survive the most aggressive bombing campaigns in history, including Operation Rolling Thunder. For U.S. soldiers, the existence of these tunnels had a profound psychological effect. The realization that the enemy could be directly beneath them at any moment, ready to strike, created an omnipresent sense of paranoia and fear. The threat of ambush from seemingly nowhere undermined morale and made every step in the jungle fraught with danger. Soldiers spoke of the eerie feeling of fighting an enemy that could appear and disappear at will, likening it to battling ghosts. Attempts by U.S. forces to neutralize this advantage, including the deployment of tunnel rats, soldiers tasked with entering and clearing tunnels, were met with limited success and high risk. These soldiers, armed only with a pistol, flashlight, and knife, faced a claustrophobic nightmare of tight spaces, darkness, booby traps, and potential face-to-face encounters with the enemy. Captivity. The treatment of U.S. prisoners of war, or POWs, by the Vietcong during the Vietnam War was marked by extreme hardship and brutality, leaving indelible scars on those who survived. Accounts from former POWs reveal a systematic approach to mistreatment by their captors. Many were held in squalid conditions, subjected to starvation diets, and denied medical care for injuries sustained during capture or torture. Physical abuse was rampant, with prisoners often beaten, shackled in painful positions, or subjected to water torture. The Vietcong also employed psychological tactics, including isolation, propaganda indoctrination sessions, and mock executions to demoralize and disorient prisoners. The story of John McCain, a naval aviator who was shot down over North Vietnam in 1967, exemplifies the severity of captivity conditions. McCain suffered severe injuries during his ejection and was subsequently captured by the North Vietnamese. He was taken to the infamous Hoa Lo prison, known colloquially as the Hanoi Hilton, where he endured years of physical and psychological torture. Despite the severe mistreatment, McCain refused early release offers, adhering to the military code of conduct, which dictated that POWs should be released in the order they were captured. McCain's resilience in the face of such adversity became a symbol of courage and endurance. However, he would carry the physical and psychological scars of his captivity for the rest of his life. So, what do you think was the most challenging aspect for U.S. soldiers facing guerrilla warfare in Vietnam? And how would you have coped in their situation? Let us know down below, and as always, see you in the next video.